Hey everybody, welcome to the show this week. I'm Gary.
This is Austin.
And we have a guest this week. Glad to have him. We have Kevin Booker, who does some history on the Sunflower League, the EKL, some high school football here in Kansas City. Tries to get that information out to people. Sunflowerfootball.news.org, right?
Sunflowerfootballnews.com.
Sunflowerfootballnews.com is the website. He has a blog. You can go check it out. We'll let him talk a little more about that. But welcome to the show, Kevin.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So it's going to kind of be an interesting year in the Sunflower League with several new coaches, 6 new hires. And, I know you kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that. So let's let the people know kind of what's going on in the Sunflower League.
That is correct. As you all know, surprisingly, after 27 years, Leavenworth has decided to defect the Sunflower League since 1981. Up until 2017, they've been a crucial part of the league. But with them leaving, brings in the Gardner-Edgerton Trailblazers. And formerly of Gardner-Edgerton having a coaching change along with 5 of the other schools, Ryan Cornelson, formerly of Hutch, who has met the Shawnee Mission East Lancers only once in his tenure in the 4 years that he was at Hutch, will now be just a little closer to the Shawnee Mission Xanthaletas here in the Sunflower League. And he's just one of a handful of coaches to join the league, as we've already mentioned, including some family ties with Steve and Zach Rampy. Also, Steve now leaving Pitt State to join the Lawrence Chesty Lions, and Zach Rampy in his first year as head coach with the Shawnee Mission North Indians.
So that's going to be kind of an interesting dynamic, I think, a father-son there, both joining the league. I mean, obviously, Steve Rampy had great success in his time at Blue Valley. 4 state titles, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. 4 state titles there at Blue Valley. You can't argue with success. People say that all the time. It's kind of cliche, but, you win 4 state titles, you know what you're doing. And so Lawrence has been, one of those teams, and this will be my 4th year at Shawnee Mission East. And, they've kind of been one of those teams that's been right there and battled with us even over the last few years. And, so it's not like the cupboard was bare. He was stepping into a rebuild job.
They're not, because Lawrence has never, ever been in a rebuild.
Yeah. So, he's, coming back to high school football after leaving the college realm. But, he'll do well there, I think.
I wouldn't expect anything less of a Rampy not to do well at the high school level. And coming back from Pitt State, he's going to help his juniors and his senior kids out in any way they can, because he knows all the coaches, whether it is his first year there or not. He knows the Bakers, he knows the NAI schools and the HAACs, that if his kids can't make it to KU or K-State or Mizzou, he still has that one phone call away where he can get any college coach out there that he knows within the state, maybe even on the Missouri side, to come take a look at a kid that was previously ignored from the previous recruiting class.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
What was like kind of the main motivation for him leaving Pitt State?
I heard some, I know from no one official, just some fans talking to Pitt State people. They weren't happy necessarily with his system being implemented there. He was in charge of the offense, and they had traditionally been kind of a power team, power I, run the ball right at you. He was a little more spread, and I feel like some people didn't like the change. Some people are just very resistant to change, and not that he was doing a bad job, but just, in college football, fans have a lot more impact than we like to think over some of that stuff.
Absolutely, and the sway
boosters
is
and money
out of his control.
Yeah,
and he ultimately didn't have the final say.
Mm-hmm.
And he was there at Pitt State for 9 years, still made a great impact for all those student athletes
Yeah.
as well, even at the college level.
Yeah. So for him to, come back and a guy, I'm sure we'll talk about Bouchard a little later, but, you're not going to come back and take just any job.
No.
And the Lawrence job, I'd have to say, was probably one of the most appealing that was open.
Oh, of all the openings, Lawrence is the cream of the crop. I mean, at least on the 6A level, Lawrence has more state football titles in the state of Kansas than even Olathe North, and even of the smaller 4A and 3A schools that we all know historically are dominant, which are the Smith Centers and the Silver Lakes, where C.J. Hamilton has been dominant, and former coaches from the 3A level on down that have not ever had that opportunity to compete against a 6 or a 5A team in the East or West. And it wouldn't matter who it was, but Lawrence is still statewide known for their high school football.
I mean, they've been, one of the top teams in the state of Kansas for a while. I mean, Lawrence Free State opening hurt that some, but not as drastically as you would think.
Not at all. And they've both been equally successful.
Yeah.
They've had their rare ups and they've had their rare downs. I mean, and Lawrence Free State, their only problem that they've ran into, which isn't any of their coaches or even their student athletes' fault, their only roadblock in the last 2 or 3 years has been Derby.
Yeah.
Everything else has been great throughout their whole season. Mm-hmm. And Derby's just been there to put a stop to it as great as it's been.
Yeah, I mean,
I heard they're pretty good.
Yeah, Derby, I've seen some film on them just because we've been pretty deep in the playoffs. And, you start kind of not necessarily looking ahead, but maybe getting some tape, for the next round. And so then, maybe after the season, I sit down and watch some of their tape. And, I mean, Derby has had some really, really good teams.
Oh, absolutely. And in these last few years under Brandon Clark, they are becoming, I would say, like a Lawrence of the South and outside of Wichita. They're under Brandon Clark, they're definitely creating a legacy. And they didn't even win a state title back in the early 90s, but they fell off the radar soon after that. But under Brandon Clark, they've won 3 state titles out of the last 4 years.
Yeah.
He's soon going to become that and reach probably that Gene Weir level if he's there for the next 10 or 15 years.
Oh, absolutely.
And that opportunity for him to come up to Northeast Johnson County is obviously going to be there for him down the road should he ever choose to leave Derby.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely since I've been at East, like I said, 4 years, it's always one of those teams when you're looking at the schedule and you're thinking, okay, are we good enough to play for a state title this year? Do we have the talent? Derby's always that team in the back of your mind from the other side of the bracket that you're like, well, that's probably who we're going to get. I mean, there's a couple other teams, but Derby's always that 1 or 2.
And it'd probably be good just to get it, just so you can test yourself again and again, even if you do lose or if you do win, because even on the 2014 season, with the Shawnee Mission East Lancers making it to that state title game back-to-back, no one was expecting Hutch to even go that far with their 1-4 start.
Yeah.
And then reeling off 7 straight wins to get to that state title game. I don't think anybody in the state was expecting Hutch to make it into that game.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and, so Lawrence, like we said, Rampy coming back, he'll have them guys ready to go. I mean, you don't forget how to coach high school football just because you've moved up a level. They'll be a force to be reckoned with. Definitely here in the Sunflower League. His son taking over at Shawnee Mission North is kind of almost the opposite program. I mean, we all know Shawnee Mission North has not been very good the last few years.
Right.
You probably got some stats on that.
That's true. I mean, I wouldn't say they haven't been very good. They have excelled under Ben Bartlett, but with Zach Rampy coming on board, they can be just as good. And you can never expect what's going to happen in the Sunflower League. All it takes is a Thursday or Friday night to change something up. And It doesn't matter if it's a road or home game. all it takes. Nobody was expecting them 2 years ago to go 6-5 with Will Schneider, and because they lost him to graduation, they didn't realize the hurt until 3 or 4 games into the season that they needed to prove themselves without him.
Yeah.
And they went 1-8.
And Snyder was a very dynamic player. I remember kind of the week leading up to that North game, really, concentrating and saying, we got to contain this guy, because he was so good at buying time and letting one of his receivers get open. And anybody who has watched football or knows anything about football is you can't cover somebody for 10 seconds.
Yeah, because they will be gone.
Yeah,
And
they'll get open. They'll find a way.
Yeah.
So, so we'll see how, Rampy's first year, it's kind of I would call it a rebuild there.
It easily could be, but, it's a good place for even Zach Rampy to start. Mm-hmm. Because if he's going to be there for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years, he's got himself a place to start before he moves on to his next step.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And at the high school level or return collegiately like his dad.
Yeah.
He spent 2 years at Butler.
Yeah,
He's going to have that opportunity given to him by KU or any college, William Jewell, you name it, any school in the metro area would hire. Mid-America. Mm-hmm. They would want to grab him and hire him away too, because he knows all the high schools in the area. He can reach out to anybody and ask, we've lost 20 kids to graduation.
Yeah.
Can I come and look at your kids' academics and what are they worth talking to?
Yeah. That's one
Absolutely.
thing I try to preach to our kids. I'm glad you mentioned academics, because, some of our kids, they know, I have a few connections at the collegiate level. They'll say, hey, can you call this coach for me, or do you know how to get in touch? And the first thing I ask them is, what's your GPA and what's your ACT score? Because that's the first thing he's going to ask me when I call about the kid.
Oh, absolutely. Those are the most important things. And getting them in touch with the school, in addition to just speaking with the player. And they are not players. They're student athletes.
Yeah.
They're kids, 9th through 12th graders.
Absolutely.
They're not players. They are in the NBA. They are in the NFL. They're student athletes at this level.
Absolutely. And so, I tell the guys all the time, hey, I'll call a guy that I know if I think you can play for him, but I got to know your ACT and I got to know your GPA.
Usually not a problem here, right?
No,
it's
typically
not
at Shawnee Mission East, no.
Not for any of the Sunflower League or EKL schools getting access to those student athletes' grades.
Yeah.
It's going to get them that access to that college diploma even after their football days are over.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, I know a lot of parents and stuff around here are really big on grades, so that would be probably the least of your concerns. But they got to be able to. They still have to be focused on that too, though. So
if you want to play on Friday night, I really don't. Even as a historian myself, I really don't care what you do on the football field at the end of the night, as long as you're putting the effort in during the day.
Yeah.
That's ultimately all that matters, because a lot of these times, 95% of these kids will retire after their senior year of playing sports. There's that small percentage of athletes that'll sign collegiately at the end of the year, men and women, that'll do great in their collegiate careers, and that's fine.
And even as good as we've been over, the last 4 years at Shawnee Mission East and the 5 years under Delaney, we didn't have a ton of kids playing big-time college ball. We would sign 1 or 2 kids every year.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of our kids are going to go to that more higher academic institution and go be that student.
Absolutely, because they need to leave Johnson County. They need to go to the Pepperdines and the Harvards, and they will come back 5, 6, 8, 10 years later and be working at the local law firms and be working wherever, police departments, wherever. Yeah. They'll find their niche.
They do. And so, I'm glad you brought that up about them being student athletes, because I completely agree with that, even as a coach. If they're not taking care of their business inside the building at Shawnee Mission East, then they can't help me on the field.
Absolutely, because I feel that way on a Friday night, whether I'm watching Elite the South versus Shawnee